The next-gen paradigm shift is necessary to move away from what we have been considering as best practice for more than 100 years in terms of managing people to a more meaningful current model. The word management is little more than 100 years old. The first organisations that incorporated managers, little more than 100 years old. They really started from the railroads in the US, and the railroads took, which were the first major employers, and they took their cue for how to set themselves up as organisations from the military over the years. Very hierarchical, very chain of command led. So the first organisations that had structures of managers were really hierarchical on a command and control basis. And in that century, of course, the manufacturing century, most workers were relatively unskilled. So they couldn't really engage mentally with the proposition. In fact, employers wanted their muscles, not their minds. It didn't really matter to employers whether people were engaged mentally with the job or not, because in the manufacturing age, the cost component of the labour was relatively low in comparison with the manufacturing cost, production cost of assembly and so forth, and equipment and materials. So it didn't matter if people were relatively disengaged, bored with the routine of assembly work and so forth, because if they were disengaged and you had to put an extra person on that particular line or whatever, the cost was relatively trivial. And the employer didn't really mind if people went home bored with the job. That was it. Of course, it is all changed in our century now. Now in the creative and innovative age, the knowledge economy, it is people's minds that is required. It is their engagement, it is their mental ingenuity, their innovation, their creativity that is required, not so much the muscles anymore. But we're still managing people on that old paradigm, the command and control paradigm, generally speaking. And as a result, we're not getting the best out of people. The way we manage people hasn't kept at pace with the change of society and so forth. And it's not difficult to see why, because once you have a culture in an organisation, a management culture, it becomes a hand-me-down model. You tend to follow the behaviours and attitudes of the managers you had when you first joined the workplace. So when you become a manager, you follow the norms and behavioural norms and attitudes that they would have. And if you spent 30 years climbing a greasy pole in a hierarchy of a major organisation, then you don't really want to give that up to people below you. You don't want to share that necessarily. So it creates, if you like, a selfish approach to the role of being a manager. And that has been the way and been acceptable in many ways, because performance of organisations in the latter part of the last century was in a growth environment, in a growth world, was pretty good anyway. So these things could be tolerated. But now we have real productivity issues in the UK. We have significant underperformance of organisations, and we need to get the best out of people. And that means that we have to review whether or not simply command and controlling them is the right way to go. And what we know is that the research is now showing that there are at least 3 powerful drivers that are bringing about change. The first driver is the Facebook generation. The Facebook generation is joining the workplace with a whole range of expectations which are based on their web experiences. And in those communities, there is no hierarchy. Position doesn't count. It's what your contribution is that counts. You have freedom of expression of any idea. You can contribute in any way. And yet when they join the workplace, they may find a bureaucratic 19th or 20th century hierarchy in place that prevents them from making any contribution. So managers would need to recognise the change there in the way that they manage younger people. The second driver that's bringing about change is the fact that in the knowledge economy, labour is the most expensive component of the business model. In the manufacturing age, it was one of the lowest cost elements. Today, most Organisations would find that their labour, their salary costs, their staff costs, their employee costs would be at least 50% of their total cost. This is something you cannot ignore anymore. Low engagement, low productivity is making a huge financial difference to the organisation. And of course, the third thing is the global competition and global change that is everywhere. That is meaning that you can no longer get away with inferior, substandard products. You have to be providing the best and the most innovative, the most creative product set. And again, you need to engage the hearts and minds of your people to do that. So a paradigm shift is called for. And what we did was to analyse all the research projects that had been conducted about engagement going back a number of years, and over a 2-year window in 2007 and 2008, we identified 6 key drivers of engagement, 6 key emotional drivers or innate needs that we all have that previously had tended to be overlooked by managers. Caring about people, about giving them a sense of value and appreciation, being honest and fair in your dealing with people, equal opportunities and so forth. Open communication, both ways, not just sharing information on a need-to-know basis, but free information being imparted two-way, encouraging trust that way. Involving people in the decisions that affect their jobs, that was another key principle. And for young people, that's incredibly important to feel involved in what they're doing. Coaching and assisting people to achieve their potential was the 5th principle. And that is what we all want. We all want to be the best we can be. And the final one is ethical practice. Increasingly, that's important to young people and the workforce in general to feel that they can trust their senior teams to do what is right, not just for them, but for the customers, for the population in general. And those 6 drivers created the choice model, CHOICE. That is the paradigm shift that we're recommending managers now to think about adopting as a mental model, rather than the old style enforcement rules of the past. Now convert to an enabling role, enabling people to achieve through applying those 6 principles, making people feel good about themselves, treating people the right way, and doing that produces a tremendous and quite rapid change in employee behaviour, engagement and performance.